Okay, I'd like to start by reminding everyone that today is the first of 5 free 1-hour webinars that I'll be doing every Tuesday in September at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And today is all about the user interface, how to use it, how to get the most out of it, feel comfortable with it, and customize it. So we'll be talking about the pull-down menus, sidebar panel, the toolbars, and everything that's on that list right there in the next hour. A couple of housekeeping details as we get started. Everyone is muted, but if you do have a question in the interface for Zoom, there is a Q&A interface where you can enter a question. Now, I may not immediately respond to that, but I have reserved some time at the end of the webinar to respond to the questions that are in there. And any question I don't get to, I'll include in the recording that will be made available after the webinar. As a way of reminding you, the session is being recorded. And at the very end of today's webinar, when you leave, a survey will pop up on the screen, and we ask you to answer that before you head out today. If you're not aware of it, we do have a Bluebeam YouTube channel that is devoted to Bluebeam videos. And in that survey there that you'll receive at the end of the webinar, there's a hot link taking you directly to it. And you'll also receive a follow-up email tomorrow that has a hot link to the YouTube channel as well. Should you wish to contact me after the webinar, my contact information is on the screen now. You can reach me at that phone number, email address, or visit our website to learn all about our Bluebeam training and consulting program. It's frequent that people mistake me as a Bluebeam employee. I'm not. I work for a company called Infotech, but I do Bluebeam training and consulting for Infotech. In fact, this is almost the last slide. In fact, we did just earlier this week release a brand new 8-hour training class that we're offering devoted to estimation and quantity takeoffs. I will be using Revu 20. It's the most up-to-date latest version released from Bluebeam Incorporated. It came out 2 weeks ago on August the 18th. If you are using Revu 2019 or Revu 2018, what I show you on the screen is not going to look exactly the same, but it'll be extremely similar, and I'll try to point out the differences as we go through. If you're using Revu 2017 or any earlier version of Revu, what you're going to see on the screen today is going to look very, very different, because between 2017 and 2018, there was a significant modification to the user interface. Just a reminder, I'm not going to be creating a bunch of markups and manipulating markups today. Today is devoted to the user interface, what people refer to as the GUI, the graphical user interface, how to control it, how to customize it, and so on. Last slide is a informational slide for anyone who's unfamiliar with it. Bluebeam has something called versions and something called editions. Bluebeam versions are major releases, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now Revu 20. An edition is, you can think of it as a flavor of Bluebeam that has a certain set of capabilities. And there's actually 3 of those editions. There's Revu Standard, Revu CAD, which has everything that's in Standard plus some additional capabilities, and then something called Revu Extreme. Revu Extreme has everything that's in both Standard and CAD plus some additional capabilities as well. If you're not familiar with what capabilities are in each particular edition, Bluebeam has a website you can visit that has a chart that shows you the most popular feature sets, and it breaks down exactly what is available in Standard or CAD or Extreme in a very well done interface. And I suggest you visit that if you never had. It's bluebeam.com/solutions/compare. And just a reminder, next week will be all about the markups and the markup lists. So here we are in Bluebeam Revu, and again, this is Bluebeam Revu 20. And when you first install the product and launch it, this is what it looks like. It comes up with this help screen. And inside of here, you can open a sample file, or you can go into the review tutorials. And if you go in there, there's topic-specific recordings and additional sample files that you can open to review things like drawing management and field issues and things like that. But eventually what you wind up doing is dismissing that dialog box or that tab. And then from that point on, every time you launch review, unless you make some preferential choices, this is what it looks like when you first launch it. So there are a series of portions of the interface that I want to make sure you're aware of. There's at the top of the interface is what I'll be referring to as the pull down menus. It's a list of menus at the very top that when you click on each one of them, there's a series of menus underneath that. Then on the left-hand side, generally, is a list of panels that if you click on any one of those, it opens that up. I'm just clicking on that with my left mouse. Or if you hover your mouse over the edge between the menu and this gray area, there will be a blue bar that highlights. Now you can just single click on that if you like and it opens, and if I do it again over here it closes. So you can either click on the icon or on that bar, it does the exact same thing, or you can click and hold your left mouse button and you can drag it in and out to adjust it to whatever width size is comfortable for you. So we got the pull down menus and the sidebar menus. Down at the very bottom of that panel list, this sidebar panel list, is a blue button that has these horizontal lines and dots on it, and it says markups on it. If you click on that button, it opens up a panel at the very bottom. It's an extremely special panel that we'll be going into detail on next week, called the markup list. And it works exactly as the others do. You can click on it, on the little icon to open and close it, or you can hover over the highlighted blue line and you can click and drag it up and down to adjust it to where it's comfortable for your screen real estate. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a series of icons here that are available to you once you have a file open, and they have an impact on the behaviors and things that you'll see inside of it. And then down the right-hand side, you'll see a list of functions that are grayed out. Right? So they're there, but they're not activated yet. Now that could be one of two reasons. Most commonly, it's because you either don't have a file open, or you have a file open that has security that's been applied to it, and certain functions have been locked out. Right? Now in my example, obviously right now I do not have a file open, so we're going to open a file or create a file, and we'll see what that does to the user interface. One other thing I'll point out before I do that is this little area here between the filing cabinet and the review menu. There's this little gap area here. And when we open a document and start manipulating it, that area will get filled by something called the properties panel, and we'll be going into that. So how do you open a file? How do you create a file? There's many, many different ways of doing that. And one of the things I want to stress to you today is that it is not the least bit at all uncommon to have the same review function available in numerous locations. All right. So for example, if I wanted to create a brand new empty 8.5 by 11 PDF file, I could go to File and I could go to New PDF. And the default assumption for me is 8.5 by 11 empty, just an empty sheet of paper, and I could hit OK, and it would create that document. Now, conversely, another way of doing the exact same thing is to, in the middle of this empty field of gray, I can right click and I've got the same capabilities in this little abbreviated shortcut menu here. I can open an existing file, or I can say new PDF, and it opens up the exact same command. Another option available to me is if I go to that file pull down menu, right below new PDF is an option that says, let's create a new PDF from a template. All right, now there are going to be documents in my list of templates that you don't have. I created these myself and added them as templates. These floor plans and some of mine are not going to be on your interface. But it's a way of creating a file, but by copying, in essence, a seed file so that your document starts with some content and nomenclature and various things that you'll use on a regular basis. In fact, you can do the same thing by right-clicking and saying new PDF. And in that interface is yet another alternative way of getting to that same information. So if I click on the template button here and I scroll up and down, I can see all of the ISO and ANSI standard templates that are available, and then I can see my own custom ones as well as the ones that were delivered from Bluebeam for me to create brand new PDF files. Now, rather than create one from scratch, I'm going to open one that is delivered from Bluebeam as a sample, and if you wish to do the same and open the exact same file, you can do so. And what I'm going to do to get there is I'm going to go to the Help menu, and I'm going to choose Welcome to Review. Now, this is what was up on the screen when we first started. It's what launches when you first install Bluebeam, is this little welcome interface. And there's a button right here that says Open a Sample File, and I'm going to do that. And if you're following along, what you'll notice is that it has now split my screen in half to where I've got two different view areas. I've got a floor plan open over here, and then over here I have this interface that they have up. And what that is what Bluebeam refers to as a web tab, which is just a way of saying it's a browser. It's a built-in browser window inside of Bluebeam, and you can use it to access whatever web portals you want to get to. Now this one is pointing to a specific file that's loaded into the machine, and it's an HTML file. But if I close that down and I go into the area just to the right of any of these tabs, if there's an open area to the right of that, you can right click in that, and that brings up that little menu we were working with before. And you can tell it anytime you like that you'd like to open a web tab, and that will launch the integrated built-in browser that's inside of Bluebeam Revu so that you can go directly to a web portal. In fact, when you open a web tab, it will go to wherever it's been told to go to, and I've obviously modified my home page here. And the way you control your web tab interface is when you have one open, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button right here that says favorites, and it's got a little star indicator. If you click on that, and another theme about Bluebeam that you need to be aware of are what we refer to as chevrons, and that's this little V indicator here indicating that this menu item has hidden or additional sub items available, and if you click on that chevron, now it will make available to you everything that's underneath that particular chevron. And in here you can see my favorites that I've created by visiting websites and hitting add to favorites. And there's even a button here for editing your Bluebeam browser web favorites, and there's a web favorites editing interface here where you can do that. And you can even, from within this interface, you can import your Internet Explorer favorites and build your list by just importing your standard favorites so that this browser has the same web access information that your standard browser has. Now we're going to come back to web tabs from time to time, but I want to draw your attention to what happened to the interface when we actually opened a file. Well, first of all, if you'll notice down the right-hand side of the interface, all of those markups that were previously grayed out have now been activated. Yeah, it has recognize the fact that a PDF file is open and available for editing, and it has activated the tools that are available to me to mark those things up. Down at the bottom of the interface, there are actually two different menus that are visible to me, and they're divided by that little blue line there. The top one is what is referred to as the navigation bar. It may or may not be turned on or visible in your use of Bluebeam, but you can turn it on and off by hitting the function 4, the F4 key on your keyboard whenever you like. It's a toggle. If it's on, it turns it off, and if it's off, it turns it on, and that's called the navigation toolbar. And the one at the very bottom is called the status toolbar, and you can turn it on and off by pressing the F8 key. And here I've pressed the F8 and the F4, and I've turned them both off. Right. Now, if you don't like using the keyboard, there are there are menus, again, duplicated instances of that command inside of the menu system. If you go to the pull down labeled Tools and you click on that, and you go down to the section that says Toolbars, right at the very top of that, you'll see there are 3 different primary toolbars that are active because they have little check boxes next to them. My status bar is on, my navigation bar is on, and so is my properties toolbar. But when we look at the list of delivered, available, additional functional toolbars that are included with Bluebeam, only 2 of those are currently active, one called Shapes and one called Text. And if I choose to, they're both turned on. I can see the little checkbox. If I click on either one of them, you'll notice on the right-hand side of the screen, it is turning it off and turning it back on. And I could then tell it, I want to see the measurement commands. They've popped up at the top of the screen, and I can turn them back off and on and off by choosing those menu choices there. If you want to manipulate these, I'm going to go back and turn the shape ones back on. If you want to manipulate these toolbars, there's a way to do that, and that is, notice between the toolbars, there's this slightly grayer horizontal line that looks like a series of dots. And if I put my mouse right on top of it, my mouse changes from a normal mouse to this 4-way arrow indicator. And if you click and hold on the handle, it grabs that toolbar and allows you to drag it around and put it in different areas within the interface. Instead of having them stacked, I could have them side by side. Instead of having it on the right side, I could drag it to the left side. I could drag it to the top and build a series of toolbars that I like using in my instance of Revu. And you can put those anywhere you like, and we'll be discussing in just a little bit how you can save the choices that you've made for all of these manipulations. For right now, I'm just going to put it back where it was. Now, in the file itself, there's a couple of things of note. Is in both the status bar and the navigation bar at the bottom of the screen in the lower right-hand side, it's already producing for me information about the document. It tells me it's a 42 by 30 inch sheet of paper, that it has already had a scale applied to it. But it's telling me here the way it was done was by doing 2 known measurements, and it figured out that 3.75 inches of paper is equal to 30 feet in reality. It tells me in this area here that this is a single sheet document. This is page 1 of 1. I'll open up another document by going to the File Access menu and choosing a document that has a bunch of pages in it. And now what you can see is I've got 2 files open. They're separated by these tabs, so I can grab one or grab the other. And when I'm in this one, it's telling me that this is instead a 36 by 24 inch document, or at least this page of this document is. It has not had a scale established for it, and it is page 1 of 75 pages. And then this is the navigation bar because it's got tools in here to go to the next page, go to the last page. Over here I can go to the previous or the first page. And then here are tools to manipulate the previous views. So for example, if I said go to page 2, it just jumps to page 2 or page 3 or page 4. and then I could go back to page 3 by saying go back to the previous page, or I could jump all the way back to page 1 by using those commands in the navigation bar. Now, if I also knew I wanted to jump down to page 35, I could just click in there and type in 35 and hit return, and it will jump to the page that I've told it I would like to get to. And again, it's constantly telling me in the lower right-hand corner information about the page that I'm currently on. This is also a 36 by 24 inch sheet of paper. Now here, if I were to zoom in, for example, to look at this detail and then slide that over, that's a series of view manipulations, not page changes that I've done. And that is what these tools are to see your previous view. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to jump back to page 2 or page 20. It's simply going to go to my previous view manipulation and then the one before that. And some of these previous views may result in it changing pages, but that's the difference between these view commands and these page commands. Also on the navigation bar, there are 4 tools here that have an impact on your behavior and how everything works when you're moving around. The first one is called the pan tool. It's the default one that's activated. And if I go into the interface and I just click and drag, it will move my view of this page around as I'm moving it on the screen. If, however, I had on this, and I'm just going to draw a quick cloud or something like that onto on the document, and then I'll place a highlight next to that. If, however, I wanted to manipulate markups that are on the document itself, I could switch from the pan tool to the select tool, and that will let me go in and selectively choose the particular document, markups that I'm after, or I can click and drag and it will grab the markups that way. Now, you don't have to have that selected for it to work. If I'm in pan mode and I go and put my cursor right on top of a markup, you'll notice that my mouse does change physically from a hand with a little symbol beside it to a black arrow, indicating that if I click right now, it will do the same as the selection tool that's going on here. Right. If my document has text in it and I need to be able to select that as text, this button here will allow me to do that, and I can come in and I can select if the document has been OCR'd and it has selectable, searchable text. It is a vector PDF file as opposed to a scanned raster file where the text is non-selectable. This tool will allow you to do that. And I'm going to go into the other drawing that's open. I still have that tool active. And if I come here to where it says Open Office, I can click and drag and highlight just that. And then if I right-click, then that allows me to perform various manipulations on that text. Where I can, even though it's not markup, it's actually content, I would be able to copy it and paste it and manipulate it in various ways. But that's the purpose of this tool here, is to switch from pan view or select view or select mode to a select text mode. And then the last of the 4 that is there is a zoom tool that if you click on it, it's automatically zooming in a certain amount. If you hold down the control key, you'll notice, if you look closely at that magnifying glass, the magnifying glass is changing from a plus sign to a minus sign. And then if I click, it's going to be zooming out instead of zooming in. Now, you don't have to use that either. You can stay in the pan mode if you wish, and you can take advantage of the scroll wheel on your mouse to do manipulations like that. Right now, if you look closely at my mouse, it's got the shape of a hand, and then it's got a little magnifying glass. So if I move the mouse in or out, it's zooming up and down, and it's allowing me to magnify. Now that's in a document that has a single page, and the default assumption is that I want to do that. But if I go to a different document, this one has many pages, and it's assuming that I want to do that as well. But instead, if I wanted to move the document up and down, I wanted to scroll as opposed to zoom in and out, that's available to you as long as you hold down the control key while you're in this mode. And you'll notice the magnifying glass turns into that arrow, and now it understands that you want to zoom up and down instead of zooming up in and out. Right? Now, the way that works is controlled through the user preferences, which we'll get to in just a second. But in the interface down here, there's a button that says Open Full Page. If I click on that, you'll notice that the default wheel function is the magnify capability. If I click here and I tell it to go to page width, you'll notice that the default mouse wheel manipulation is to scroll up and down, and you can just override that by holding down that control key as you're moving around. All right, so I'd like to get started by rolling through some of these side panels and some of these pull down menus and just running through each of those to let you know what you can do with them. All right, so I'm going to start here with the File Access panel. And as you might imagine, it gives you access to documents that you use on a regular basis. At the bottom, it shows you documents that you've recently opened, and you can, its default is to show it by date, but you can change it to folder, most accessed, access history. If you don't want that many files in your recent history, that's configurable under the user preferences, which I'll show you in just a minute. But you can also right-click right on that menu, right next to the word recents. If you right-click in there, there's the ability to say, I want to clear all recents, and it will, in essence, wipe out that history of the files that you've opened recently. All right. Now, you can also grab any file that you've opened recently, and you notice that there's a little push pin tab next to it. You can do two things with that. You can click on that, and you can tell it, I want to pin this file. And if you do, what it does is up under this grouping called pinned, it keeps a permanent record of that there, so it's always easily accessible. And what it does is it defaults to the folder where that file came from. If you don't want to do that, but you do want to keep it around, you can click on that same push pin, and instead you can say, I want to create a category of documents that have a commonality to them, and you can create a list of categories, and then from that point on you can start storing these documents or pinning these documents to a list of categories, so that like here I can simply go to find all of my Bluebeam manuals from various highway departments and just jump directly to those by using these categories. Right? Underneath that is the thumbnail panel. If I go to the document that just has one page and I open this thing up, we're seeing one thumbnail. But if I go to the document that has 75 pages, now you can see under thumbnails that I see a whole series of them. How many you see depends on the width that you're using with that panel. By dragging that blue vertical line back and forth, you can greatly change how many of these pages you can see at any given time. You can also manipulate these pages in this thumbnail panel by clicking on a thumbnail. You can also hold down the control key or the shift key, and you can grab multiple thumbnails for various pages of a document. And then when you right click, there's an entire list of menus of functions that you can do to a single page or multiple pages simultaneously. You want to be careful with this, because if you hit delete pages, it's deleting pages. You can also rename pages, you can number pages, apply stamps. There's a tremendous amount of functionality when you're dealing with a multi-page PDF and you've got that thumbnail panel open. You can also click and drag. If I didn't want this to be sheet number 11, if I wanted it to be number 14, I could just click and drag it just like you could in PowerPoint, and it's going to resort and reorder the thumbnails that are pages within this particular document. Below that is the panel for bookmarks. Now, if we go look at the sample document, and we look at bookmarks, it doesn't have any. No one ever created any bookmarks. None were created as part of the production of this file as a PDF from a Revit or AutoCAD or wherever it came from. But if we go back to this other file and we look at the bookmarks, these bookmarks were created when this file was created, and what they allow us to do is to quickly jump to a page. So if I zoom in here and I see that E001 is the electrical legend, I could just simply come over here to the bookmark and click on E001 and it's going to jump directly to it. All right, so bookmarks are a very helpful tool, and there are ways, if you don't have bookmarks, to create them or to have the system create them for you using something called AutoMark. And then there's sets. Sets are very different. For any of you who use MicroStation or AutoCAD, you're familiar with reference files and external references, and sets are very similar to that. A set is a collection of individual PDF files that you manipulate as if they were one file. It's a way of gathering things together in a convenient way, because instead of opening a single 75-page document, you could open a set that has 75 individual files, and it operates much faster. It's much easier to manipulate. And then when you click on a file, then it opens up the individual member of that set. In my list of files here, I've got a set already available to me, and I'm going to click on that. And what you see is it's got a category of the various disciplines, and if I go to architecture, I can see this is a copy of the 75-page PDF file that I had open a few minutes ago, where every single page has been separated into its own individual PDF file, and currently none of them are actually open. I'm looking at a set, I'm looking at a whole bunch of files that are members of this set, but when I come into the main area and I look at the number of tabs I've got open, I've only got one file open right now. But if I come into that set and I say, you know what, I want to work on that electrical document number 104, when I click on it, now it actually opened that individual PDF file for me to work on it. You can also open up a different file, and again, this is just simply allowing you access to many, many files at the same time. The next panel that's in that list over there is called Layers, and this is just like a CAD layer. It allows you to go in and turn on and turn off certain markups that are in a file by simply saying, I don't want to see that particular thing at this moment in time. And next week, we'll be placing markups and showing how you put them on a particular layer and put that into a tool set and control that manipulation. But under layers, if your file has layers, you'll be able to go in there and be able to turn them on and off by simply clicking on that little eyeball icon. Next on that list are tool chests. Now, this is one of the most powerful features of Bluebeam, in my opinion, and these are libraries of symbology that you can use over and over again. They can be captured from engineering documents, or they can be created from scratch, so that when you go to draw something on your page, it automatically is a certain color. It's automatically got a certain subject and title information. It's automatically on a specific layer. All of those things can be established and saved into a tool set, and then that standardizes your symbology so that when any project participant working together in the cloud or on documents that you're sharing on a network drive or however you're communicating with each other, they can simply look at the screen and know that that green cloud came from the structural engineer, and that orange cloud or that orange comment came from a roadway engineer, or whatever your established standards happen to be. Spaces are very similar to rooms inside of Revit, where you've got a definable space that has a name. For example, here where it says Office 205, you could have an intelligent area boundary there. I've got an example here called floor plan. This actually came from Revit, and when you create a PDF file from Revit, under the Bluebeam plugin, there's a configuration menu in there, and you can tell it, I want to take my Revit rooms and I want to auto convert those to Bluebeam spaces, so that when it creates the spaces, you automatically have all of the spaces created. You already have the names that are associated with them. You don't have to create any of this from scratch. It just comes over from the Revit file. And then you can go into your PDF file and you can start doing your markup manipulations, putting various count items and things inside of there. And it will not only know that you have 13 types of electrical outlet in this drawing, and it will know specifically which room that thing is located to, and you can make that part of your reporting and your legend capabilities that are available through Bluebeam as well. Next on that panel are the properties panel. If you don't have a markup active, if you're not in the middle of manipulating one, placing one, or working with one, it shows you the properties of the file that you're currently in. But if I go and start placing a markup, the properties panel here will show you every detail it can about the characteristics of what you're about to do. It's going to be a blue cloud with no fill. It will not have a hatch pattern. It will not have a filtered opacity. It's just a simple blue cloud. I could have changed any of that prior to placing that by changing these manipulations inside of here. Again, going back to the redundancy, in addition to the properties panel, there is a properties toolbar that floats up here that has a limited number of the property characteristics that are most popular. Line style, width, color, fill, hatch, those types of things are there. But if you really want to see every single thing you can about a particular markup that you're placing or manipulating, you'll want to be able to go into that properties tab in order to be able to see it. Next to that is the panel. This is tied into measurement markups that are inside of Bluebeam. If you're doing area calculations, volumes, if you're doing linear measurements, anything that involves a calculation of some type, the measure command will show you the details of the markup that you currently have active. What I did is I just clicked on a area measurement, and now I can see all of the properties for it here. It's telling me the units, it's telling me the label, the subject, the precision, all of which are configurable and modifiable. And you'll also note that at the top of the interface, when I selected that markup, that area measurement markup, the property toolbar also modified itself with a bunch of information that is very specific to measurement commands. Down below measurements, we've got digital signatures. You can do both electronic or digital signatures with Bluebeam, and this is where you would go about placing those. You can just click and place one, and it will automatically communicate with your digital IDs that have been set up, and you can have multiple different appearances to work with those, and I'll go into more details with those next week and the week after. The last two things on this sidebar menu are search and studio, and under search, the most important thing I want to point out to you here is that there's two different types of searching in Bluebeam. There's searching for text, which is the default, where I could key in a name for like corridor and go in there and hit search, and it's going to search what it's been told to. I'm telling it to search the current document. I could have told it to search the current page of a 100-page document, or all open documents, or the current set, or all recents, or you could even point it to a folder and tell it to go through the subfolders, and it would recurse through an entire tree of PDF documents looking for any of them that had the word corridor located in them. Now, if you do that, be prepared to wait a while it processes, but that in essence is what this search engine is capable of doing. But in addition to text, right beside that is a button that says, I want to do a visual search. What that does is, I'm going to go back to the sample file here. If I wanted to visually search for these fixtures in this particular drawing, I could, where it says get a rectangle, I could draw a rectangle around that sink, for example. It would capture that sink into its memory, and then I could say search the current document. I'll tell it to search this current document for every instance of that graphic that it can find, and it will then come back and show me how, 2 or 3 or 5 or 50 or however many it found. And then down inside here, I'm seeing each one of those. And then if I go and click on any one of those, it will highlight for me that particular instance of that sync that it found. And there's a list of manipulations that we can do to that now that it's performed a visual search. Studio, we're not going to go into detail today at all because the entire focus of week 4 of the webinar series is all about cloud technologies, and that's when we'll go into detail into Studio. But that's what this does. It opens up your access to the Studio server, which is a free service to anyone using Bluebeam. And it's got 2 different functions. It's got a cloud-based file storage capability called Bluebeam Studio Projects, which is what it's pointing to right now. And then beside that, it's got access to a capability called Bluebeam Studio Sessions. And these are virtual conference rooms where up to 500 people at a time can gather and collaborate on a collection of PDF files and each mark them up and have the confidence that your markups are protected from any other project participant in that studio session who are doing markups of their own as well. Now I want to get into some of the pull down menus and show you many of the functions that are inside of there. And we'll start by going into the file pull down. And under the file pull down, a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory. New PDF, a new PDF from a template. The important thing I want to point out to you here is that this is a fixed list initially that comes from Bluebeam, but you can modify it, you can add to it. In fact, you could go and say, I want to create a new PDF and it's a completely empty 8.5 by 11 and I'm going to just draw some stuff into it. And let's say I draw another one here. And for some reason, I wanted that as a template. While that file is, while it's open, while it's active, I could go into File, New PDF from a template, and the one that I'm currently working on, I would be able to hit Save as a template instead of saving it as just a normal local PDF file. And it would allow me to take this completely custom PDF file that I'm building from scratch and make it a member of my list of standard templates that I use on a regular basis. And you can do that whenever you want. And that is exactly how I created these standards for electrical and fire protection and mechanical that have particular borders and detail sheets and things like that. Underneath that, you've got the create, which again is I want to create a PDF file from a non-PDF file. You choose that. It will say, okay, I want to grab this Word document or this Excel spreadsheet or this Visio file, and it will just auto-convert it to a PDF file. You can do that with multiple files. You can interface with a scanner or a camera. You can create something called a PDF package. And a PDF package, if you've never created one in Bluebeam, it's just like a zip file, but it's using the portable document format to maintain everything in a collection as opposed to a zip file. And once you create one, you can add any file type to it. They don't have to be just PDF files. I could go in and add MicroStation drawings and Revit models and save all of that as just a PDF, but it's what Bluebeam refers to as a PDF package. And you can actually have folders and subfolders and trees of information inside of a PDF package as well. I'm going to move on to edit. In edit, there are things that you can do to the PDF file itself that involve manipulating the content. Now, what do we mean by PDF content? Anytime you're looking at a PDF file that's got markups and things on it, there are really 2 different things that you're looking at. There's the part of the document that came from however it was created as a PDF, generally from a CAD application or BIM application going to a PDF file, creating vector content. And then you start marking it up and you got markups on top of it. Well, in this edit menu, there are tools called Snapshot and PDF content where you can actually manipulate the PDF content. All right, to illustrate what's what, I'm going to go to the View pull down and I'm going to choose at the very bottom, I'm going to choose one of my favorite tools here called Dimmer. And whenever you turn on the dimmer, you can either turn it on and off or you can put a specific scale value to it here as to how much of it is going to be dimmed out. And what it does is it just instantly takes everything that is not a markup and it turns it into that light gray screened. And now it's super easy to look at this file and know what is a markup and what is PDF content. And now that I've done that, it's easier for me to realize that, oh, okay, I could go in there and grab under the edit menu, I could go in there and do a snapshot, or under PDF content, there's a series of manipulations I can do to all of this stuff that is grayed out, because those are not markups. They're actually part of the original PDF file and the content that's there. And there's an entire menu of things that you can do inside of the PDF content. Last on this list is you can check your spelling. You can actually check the spelling of PDF content information or the markups and form field metadata that you put into a PDF file that has form fields on it. Those are all underneath this edit command. Under view, there's a whole bunch of standard commands: fit view, fit width, actual view, side by side. Again, these are all really self-explanatory. But let's get to split view. Split view is really important. And what that allows you to do is that allows you to take your screen and split it in half. All right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a file. I'm going to close these two down, and I'm going to do a file open, and I'm going to grab 4 separate files here. All right? I'm going to go to this folder, and I'm going to grab this architectural file and this electrical file, fire protection, and mechanical. And I'm going to open up all 4 of those. So I've got the same document. Oh, and I still have the dimmer turned on, so I'm going to turn that off. I've got the same document with 4 different disciplines that are currently displayed here. And that is a prime example of why you might want to split your screen. So I'm going to go, and in the navigation bar, there's a series of tools in the lower left-hand corner here to split your screen vertically and horizontally. So I'm going to split my screen in half. All right, and now I'm going to take the electrical one and put it over here. And now I'm going to split that screen horizontally, and I'm going to close that down. And then over here, I'm going to take this one and split it horizontally. So I've got the electrical, let's put fire protection over here and get rid of that. So what I have now is I've got the mechanical drawing, I've got the architectural drawing, I've got the electrical drawing, and I've got the fire protection drawing. So I'm able to split my screen in 4 pieces and see exactly what each discipline has on it as I'm moving around. In the status bar down at the bottom down here, there's a tool that will greatly enhance your experience when you are working with a split screen like this. And by the way, you can split your screen up to 16 times. So you could have, if you wanted, in this example, you could have up to 16 different files open simultaneously, or you could have 16 different views into the same file if you wanted that. Or you could have 14 different views into multiple different files and 2 web tabs. You know, how you use your view capabilities and splitting them is totally up to you, but you can split your screen up to 16 times. This button I wanted to tell you about is right here. It's called Synchronize Views. It's part of the status bar. And if you turn that on, the minute you turn it on, now it's enabling a rule that says whatever I do in one view, I want you to match that in the other view. So if I scroll into the corner of this building and I'm working in the fire protection drawing, it's automatically doing it in all of the others. You can do the exact same thing with multiple views into the same file, where instead of telling it to synchronize based on separate documents, you could tell it to synchronize based on different pages within the same multi-page PDF file. So it's a really nice tool, but there may be times when you want to disable it. So just remember that it's right there, so that now I can do something in a particular view without having all of the others continuously update with me. It's a simple turn on and turn off. And underneath views, you'll see another example of how a command is in multiple locations. That same exact synchronized view by document or page function is also available in the view pull down. It's right here. You've got those same commands that were here: split view vertically, split horizontally. You can unsplit, which is right here. You can synchronize or by document or page. You can, now this is something that AutoCAD users find very helpful. It's the full screen crosshair to enable it so it looks just like AutoCAD, where a lot of AutoCAD users I've worked with are very comfortable with that. They find it comfortable when they're doing a like a rectangular or shape manipulation, to be able to see exactly where it's going to be aligned as opposed to guessing to it. And that is just another example of tools that are available in various menus and in multiple locations. Underneath documents, there's a tremendous amount of file manipulation tools inside of here. You can go into page setup, crop pages, number pages, compare documents, and overlay pages is a utility that I'll be getting into in week 3, where we'll be talking about, we'll do a comparison and a file overlay. You can do, if you have that extreme edition, you can create repetitive tasks like that are called scripts, and you can run those scripts. If you have the extreme edition, there's a number of capabilities that you can do on a batch function that you're not able to do with the standard or CAD application, like batch sign and seal, slip sheeting. Slip sheeting is the ability to take a set of documents and tell it that of this 80-page set of documents, these 20 pages have changed, and have it automatically synchronized the modified pages and put the most up-to-date version at the top of the list. Underneath tools, these are, and again, next week we'll be going into great detail on all of these markups, like markups and stamps and measure, sketch to scale, forms, and various things like that. And underneath window are where you've got access to the web tab. Again, you don't have to right click and go to web tab. You can just go to window and go to web tab. You can go into this list of panels that are here. You can right click in that area and decide if there's any of them that are hidden that you'd like to enable. You can actually right click on the icon itself and decide if you want to hide it or show it and things like that. But it's also available under the panels pull down that is available under the window pull down menu. But the last thing I want to show you as we're wrapping up on just the GUI is, it would be incomplete to cover all of this and not talk about profiles. Everything I've done about moving around my toolbars, and in fact, one thing I was going to show you that I haven't got to yet is how to create custom toolbars. I want to make sure we cover that before we wrap up. If I go into toolbars, in this menu, I can take the ones that have been delivered to me and I can turn them on and off by simply clicking on them. But at the very bottom is a button that says Customize. Now, if you choose that, it opens an interface that allows you to choose any of the delivered toolbars and change them. So if I go down and look at the one called Shapes, what I'm seeing over here under Shapes is a result of the choices that were made over here. If I don't like the order in which they're located, I can go and grab one of these and move them up or down and save that change, and it's going to modify my toolbar. I can do that with any one of these toolbars by using that Customize button. But another thing you can do is in the upper right hand corner where you choose the toolbar, there's a green button there where you can create your own from scratch. Right? So I'm going to say add, and I'm going to call this Terry's Tools. Now, Terry's Tools doesn't have anything in it right now. I would need to go and select the things that I intend to use on a regular basis and put them into my particular toolbar. But here's the kicker on this when you first start using it. Where it says categories, it's filtering out the available commands based on a certain category that is currently highlighted. All right, you can selectively go into each one of those and look for and pull over the things that you want. Or what I typically do is hit and say all. That sorts it alphabetically, and then I can just go in there and start looking for the things I want. If I just hit the letter D, it jumps to the first D, and then I can find dimmer and I can find disable, and I want to get the hide markups button, so I'll grab the hide one. So you can selectively choose whatever it is you want and put that into your toolbar, and now you've got your own custom toolbar that you can put wherever you want on the interface. All of those manipulations that I'm doing, is the status bar activated? Is the properties panel activated? Do I have custom toolbars? Have I modified the panels? Have I moved things around? You can take any one of these panel icons and you can click and hold on it, right? And in addition to having it on the left-hand side, you could move it to the right-hand side. You could leave it floating in the middle of the screen. You can do all sorts of manipulations like that about the behavior and functionality of Bluebeam. And all of the things that you've tweaked can be saved and remembered and reusable and shareable through something called a profile. So if you go to Review in the upper left-hand corner, you go to the Review pull down, there are three primary things in here to cover, and they are profiles, preferences, and shortcut keys. Let's talk about profiles. A profile is a way of storing all of your interface choices into a savable and reusable file. So I'm working in the Review profile currently, which was delivered, from Bluebeam. But if I go to Manage Profiles, I can take all of the things that I've done and I can do add and give it a brand new name, and I can create my own profile, which as you can tell, I've already done. So if I go to Profiles and change it to Terry, now you'll see all of my menus changed. I've got a tremendous amount of customized toolbars at the top. All of my list of available libraries of symbology have now adjusted, and Profiles is a really powerful tool. Wrapping up, the other thing that is in there that is really important is preferences. If you go to preferences, these are your user preferences that control your behavior of Bluebeam, and they're categorized into these different categories: general interface, grid and snap, document, navigation. Just under plain options, you'll see where I've got things like being able to change the interface from light to dark or dark to light, being able to go in and change things like interfacing with SharePoint or ProjectWise to where my menu automatically goes to that application as opposed to going into just a local drive. So preferences is a really powerful tool. You can't really do a tremendous amount of damage under preferences, but what I would highly suggest is make one change at a time and then understand fully the impact of the choice that you just made, so that you don't make 5 or 6 changes and then you can't figure out why something is behaving in a way that you didn't anticipate. And the last thing is the shortcut keys. When you're working with markups, almost every single markup in the menu system has this little shortcut key. Instead of choosing polyline from the menu, I can just do Shift-N and it will activate the polyline command. Those are called keyboard shortcuts or shortcut keys. Underneath Review, there's a menu option right here for keyboard shortcuts. And underneath keyboard shortcuts, you can get to a list of all of the tools and all of the commands that have these shortcuts or not. Some of them in here don't already have shortcut keys associated with them. And you can assign that command a custom shortcut key that is comfortable for you, or you can reassign some that were decided by Bluebeam. So Alt and the letter Y activates the layer panel. If that is not, well, that one's reserved, obviously. There's some reserved ones there. But if you see a tool or command in here that is not reserved and you wish to change it, you can do your keyboard function and you actually have the option then to reassign that keyboard shortcut by doing that particular function through that shortcut key. Okay, we're wrapping it up today. I ran a little bit longer than I had anticipated. A reminder, next week we'll start at exactly 2 o'clock, planning on an hour. We don't have enough time today for me to respond to them verbally, but I will respond to each of these questions and put it into the video. Thank you for attending, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Thanks for sticking around for the questions and bonus content portion of the video. Let's get started with the questions. The first of which is, what's the difference between new PDF and create PDF? When I go into this gray area and I right click, I've got the option of new PDF or create PDF. Also, if I go to the file pull down, I've got new PDF and create PDF where there's a series of options. So what really is the difference? If I go to the screen and I hit new, what it does is it uses a PDF template of some type, an existing PDF, to create a new PDF. And my default template is a portrait-oriented, empty 8.5 by 11, and it just creates a PDF file from a PDF file. If I don't want it empty or 8.5 by 11, I can choose from all these various templates, or I could choose content that I want on the created PDF file, but it creates a PDF file from a PDF file. Create PDF is different in that if I right click and say create PDF, it opens up the Windows Explorer and it wants me to choose an existing document, PDF or not, that it is going to process and create a PDF file out of. So if I go here, I can choose a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet or a Visio file or whatever it is. And when I hit open, what it will do is it will launch a process called the stapler. It's a free utility that comes with the Bluebeam package. And what it does is it's a file conversion utility, and it converts these native files from their native format and puts them into a PDF format. And when it launches, it asks you what you want to name it. There's all sorts of variables that you can choose, and it's a really powerful tool. But that's the difference between new PDF and create PDF. In fact, if you go to File and go to Open, you can actually get to the create PDF from here. A lot of people are unaware of the fact that there is a filter being applied in the lower right hand corner by default, and it's only looking for PDF files. But if you modify that and take it to all file types, you can do the exact same thing. I could choose a Word document or that same Visio file, hit open, and it's going to do the exact same create PDF function by launching the stapler and doing a conversion to modify a copy of an existing file to create a PDF from it. The same person asked, if you delete pages from a document, can you recover them? That's a great question. Let me show you that. If I go into that file I had open during the webinar and we look at the thumbnails for that, there's a whole bunch of pages there. I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to draw a line and I'm going to place a cloud. And I'm going to draw a highlight. Then I'm going to go to edit and use the lasso maybe, and I'm going to grab all those things and I'm going to delete them. All right, now that has nothing to do with deleting pages, but I'm doing that intentionally for in just a second. So here I come in and I grab a page and I hold down my shift or control options here and I grab multiple pages. I hit the delete key and it says, are you sure you want to do that? And I say yes. So your question of can you recover deleted pages? It depends. If you haven't left the file, if you haven't saved your changes, if you haven't committed yourself, you can go to the edit pull down, and the third thing in that list is your undo history, and it shows you all the activities that you've done that are undoable. So you can see where I drew these elements and I deleted these markups, and any one of which can be undone. And the last thing on there is delete pages. So I haven't left the drawing, I haven't saved my changes, it's still available, so I can do an undo and it will put those pages back. But you're not going to be able to do that if you save the file and come back 2 weeks later. That's just not going to be an option for you. The next question that was asked had to do with PDF templates. When I go in and do a file, new PDF from a template, and I look at this list, one thing I didn't mention during the live webinar is that for each one of these, you'll notice that little pencil icon that pops up. If you go to a particular template, let's choose this one here, and you hit that pencil icon, it opens not a copy of the template, but the actual template. You can see that by the little indicator in the tab there. And you can actually modify your template and save whatever changes you've made to it by using that methodology. But the question is where are these templates stored? Well, that's going to vary from machine to machine, and it is something that you can edit. At the very bottom bottom of the interface is a button that says, I want to change my template folder. If you choose that, it takes you to where your template folder is located, which is actually a hidden folder. For me, it's under Users, Walter, Application Data, Roaming, Bluebeam Software, Review, 20 templates, and so on and so forth. And that is where it's anticipating all my templates to be. If I want to modify that, I can point it to a completely different location, update that by telling it, no, that's where I want my templates to be, and then I can have it in a centralized location, and in fact, we can put it into a shared location. But make sure that if you intend to do that, that you coordinate with your IT department to make sure that you have all the appropriate permissions that you need to have that work properly. The next question that came in had to do with web tabs. So if I go to the web tab, I mentioned during the live webinar that you can go into this area here and you can edit your web favorites, and you can modify your content, you can import your Internet Explorer favorites and so on. And the question is if you import Internet Explorer favorites, is that for the machine or is that for the person using the machine? And to be honest, I really don't know. I haven't done any testing with that. If you're sharing a machine like that, my presumption is it's tied to the account that is currently active, but I would do some testing on that to see if it's working the way you would want it to work. An alternative to that, though, is this option here called Export as a Standard Favorites. What you can do is you can get it set up on a particular machine exactly the way you want it for everyone who's using this feature with Bluebeam, and then you can export that as a standard. It creates a extended markup language or an XML file that then you can all reference. And the way you go about that is you create that XML file, and then all of the people you want to utilize that would go to Review and Preferences, and underneath Window, they would go to Web tab, and currently it is not set up to use standardized favorites. It's set up to use what each individual user has, whether they've imported favorites or created their own or that sort of thing. And if you don't want that, you would want to activate that, and you would go into that browser and you would point it to wherever that created XML file is, and then from that point forward, you'd all be working off of the same favorites from that same exported and saved standardized favorites file, which again is just an XML file. One other thing while I'm on the page here, when you're working in a PDF file that has hyperlinks, you may not want to use the integrated built-in browser inside of Bluebeam. You might want to use Chrome or whatever your default browser is. You can control that from this same preference menu by going and just turning off Open PDF File Hyperlinks in the web tabs. Welcome to the final part called bonus content, where I'm going to go into greater detail on a feature of the status bar that I did not have time to do during the actual webinar. And those are these icons that are part of the status bar at the bottom of the screen here. I've reopened that sample file that's delivered with Bluebeam Revu, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so that we can see it more closely, and I'm going to start clicking on some of these icons down here to illustrate what they do. Just like CAD applications, Bluebeam Revu has a hidden grid that is available to enable and utilize whenever you like, and that's what these icons are for in the status toolbar. The first one is Show Grid, and if I turn that on, it shows the grid. Now that grid is modifiable through the Review Preferences menu. You can change the distance between the dots, you can change the level of accuracy. There's a lot of manipulations you can do under the Preferences menu. If I zoom in, we'll see how tight it actually gets. But the grid lock is not currently activated. So if I come to place a line, I can go between those dots. I can draw graphic content wherever I happen to hit data points. If you enable the grid lock, now you can go in, and as you're placing data points, it will automatically snap to the closest location and then allow you to place in a secondary point, but only go to a specific point that is, as you can see, snapping to one of the grid points. Now what I see on the screen is both PDF content and markups. Now let's look at the other icons that are in that status toolbar. This one, when you hover over it, indicates that it is a snap to content lock. So if I turn that on and I start drawing markups, you'll see that as I get near content, it shows a little target indicating that if I were to click my left mouse button right now, it's going to snap exactly to that location, and it allows me to take advantage of a vector PDF file that has this snappable capability. The same thing is capable with markups. If I turn on the snap to markup lock and go to place a markup, now not only will it snap to PDF content because that lock is still on, it will also take advantage of these drawn markups that are inside of this PDF file and let me snap to those as well. So these are locks that you can turn on and turn off as often as you wish, and it simply controls what's going to happen to your data point on your mouse cursor when you go to enter a data point, and exactly what level of accuracy are you going to have in placing that point. And the last icon on the status toolbar that we haven't talked about is this one called Reuse Markup Tools. It is absolutely a favorite of mine, and here's what it does. I've got it turned off, and I go to draw anything. I go to draw a cloud. It places the cloud and it immediately stops. It lets go. If I want to place another cloud and another cloud and another cloud, out of the box I have to keep going back to the command, draw a cloud, and then it stops. And then I have to go back and choose it again, draw another cloud. If you enable the reuse markup lock, now you can perform a function and it will do it, but you can keep performing that function and keep performing that function and keep performing that function. And it will keep doing so until you press the escape key on your keyboard, and then it will stop doing the current command. And it works with all of those placement commands. So if I come in here and place a highlight, when I'm done, I can place another and place another and place another without having to go back to the well each time. Again, don't forget to hit the escape key, which is what stops the process and lets you move on to your next command. Like a lot of things I showed in the live webinar, there's redundant locations where these tools are found. If you go to the View pull down, you've got the same tools here: Show Grid, Snap to Grid, Snap to Content, Snap to Markup. I want to thank everyone who attended the webinar. I really appreciate the time you devote into this, and I hope you'll be able to join us next Tuesday as we go into greater details on markups and the markup list panel.